welcome to the What It Really Be Like podcast. In this episode, we're going to find out what it really be like to be a high school teacher. All of us have been students, but very few of us have been on the other side of this relationship. This episode's guest is my friend and teacher, Javier Arredondo. Javy is an interesting and thoughtful guy who brings some unique experience to the teaching role, and he has some great insight on it. Javy and I are good friends, but we haven't really talked in depth about his teaching job until this episode, and I was surprised in a good way. By the end of this conversation, I was ready to send my non-existent kids to his class. And my guess is that you too will be impressed by this conversation. As always, if you or anybody you know has an interesting job or life experience and you want to talk about it on the pod, reach out to me. The contact information will be in the description of this episode. And now, I bring to you my friend and high school teacher, Javier Arredondo. Javy, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Welcome to Vegas, too.
Let's go.
Let's go. What do you do for a living?
I'm a teacher. I teach 11th grade math.
How long have you been doing this?
This is my second year.
Okay.
I just started I'm halfway through my second year.
So you're in your 30s, and I bring that up because you've had a few jobs before this. So I think you bring probably a unique perspective into this job.
Okay. Can
you walk us through those previous jobs, kind of what you thought of them and why you left them?
Sure.
Okay.
My first job, which was my degree was civil engineering. And then I went to become a civil engineer, specifically focusing on structures, which is one of the 5 different focuses you can have. And I did that for almost a year, just a little under. I worked on a dam.
Damn, that's crazy.
I know. We replaced the gates of the dam. There was I think 8 of them, called sluice gates. And then I worked on a bridge, and we did a seismic retrofit and basically cleaned it up from the outside to make it look pretty for the 100-year celebration of the bridge.
That bridge, by the way, do you want to talk about where that bridge is?
It's in San Diego.
Right,
yeah.
In Balboa Park.
Yeah.
So don't go over that bridge if you're in San Diego, right?
No, you can't. You're fine. Yeah.
Okay.
We made it safer, yeah.
Right, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you can go over the bridge.
Yeah. So that's why I moved down to San Diego to work on that project.
Okay, that's what took you there.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was happy to go.
But then something inside you said, this is not really what I want to do, right?
Right, yeah. There were a lot of times where I just wasn't happy with the job. I think the better term for it is I wasn't fulfilled. At the end of the day, I just felt like I was making money for a company, which was great and fine, right? I mean, I was meeting really fascinating people, really smart people, working with really great, high-quality people. But the work just didn't mean very much to me. I'd always worked with people before, and I'd always been in education in some capacity, whether it be tutoring or after-school programs, summer programs, before I graduated college. So that shift was different and really made me realize how much I appreciate and I value and I get fulfilled from working and helping people. So I had to leave. And I found myself not caring about the work anymore. I remember I just get a phone call to take care of something and okay, I got it. And I was like, all right. I mean, I know how to do it. I knew what I needed to do to get it done. It just didn't matter to me.
Yeah. Not inspired anymore.
No.
Going through the motions.
Yeah.
Didn't want to go into work.
Absolutely, yeah. Having a hard time sleeping. The job was stressful because we were, it's construction. You're always behind on a project. We were working long hours too, and working half-day Saturdays. But it's crazy because I'm working more now than I was before.
Yeah.
And I'm significantly more happy.
Right. It doesn't feel as tedious or... It's work you want to do anyway.
Yeah, it feels purposeful. And it feels like it matters. At least right now it does for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you left the engineering job and you got into education.
I'd say I went back into education.
Back into it.
Yeah. Like I said, all those other things I mentioned were jobs I've had since high school. In high school, I started tutoring. That was my first job. I was a private tutor. After my geometry teacher recommended me to her neighbor. She's like, I think you should be a tutor. And I was like, okay. So I did that. And that led to private tutoring for like years. I did that all.
Decent money in school, right? When you're in high school, it's like...
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I was working on an after school program for 2nd through 5th graders.
Right.
So I was doing both of those. And then, so after I left engineering, I didn't have a plan, but I knew that it was like, I knew where I was going to go. And I ended up picking up a private tutoring gig, of course. And then that family really liked me. And so they recommended me to other families. And then I just had way too many people to tutor.
Yeah.
And I had to start saying no, which was great. That was an awesome problem to have.
Good problem to have,
Yeah. So I did that, and then I was working at Upward Bound, which is one of the TRIO programs, which is a program that I was a part of when I was in high school and college. And it was super helpful. Incredible programs for first-gen low-income students. So I went to work for them, but that was only a part-time gig, so I did that and private tutored at the same time, which worked out really nice. And then I started to get more direction of like what I wanted to do and where I wanted to work and what age level I wanted to work with. Because at that point, I'd worked with every grade from 2nd to high school and everything in between, so grades 2 through 12. And then I wanted to work at the college level. So I went, while I was doing those two jobs, I decided to go get my master's in education with a college counseling specialization. And that felt super right. So I had the flexibility to do all that while working the part-time job and then tutoring as much or as little as I wanted to.
That's a very specific degree. So you knew like this is exactly getting this degree for this job because it's the job I want.
Yeah. So I originally thought that I was going to be like a college counselor at the like community college level. And that's what I was shooting for, because when I was in college, I also worked this job. I was a peer advising counselor, so I did like, I'd help students figure out their academic schedule and just like talk to them about life. So it was like a nice blend of that.
Yeah.
And I really liked that. So I always thought when I was going for that degree, I always thought, what is a job that I really enjoy and how can I do something like that again? And I thought about that job right away. So I didn't quite do that right afterwards, but it was fine. I was taking it a different direction that worked out really well for me at a place that I also really wanted to be at. So, yeah, I guess I could just tell you about that now.
Yeah. So now you're working at UCSD.
Yeah, at this point, yeah. So
right.
I left. I was working for Upward Bound at Palomar College for like 2.5 years, which was great, but I just needed more also because it wasn't full time, and I didn't want to do the whole tutoring and that. As much as I love tutoring too, that was really hard to leave those students and those families because I really, grew attached to them.
Yeah, you built strong connections, strong bonds.
100%. Yeah. I worked with those kids. Some of those kids I worked with the whole time, or like I guess at that point 3 years, almost 3 years.
Almost like a role model parent type figure in their life.
Yeah, I think that's always education in general. It's always someone who's there who's another adult in their life. Like you and me have probably seen throughout one of the years we saw our teacher more than we did our parents because we're with them, like our teachers, right?
Yeah, that's probably true. Right.
I find it really important to think about what kind of teachers you want to be around or what kind of adults you want to have influencing your student or your child or whatever it may be. So that I realized how crucial and important that really is.
Yeah.
So once I left that, I went to work at UC San Diego, which is a place I really wanted to work at because I liked the UC system because I was a part of the UC system. I went to Davis, and
it's elite.
Sure. And I wanted to be at UCSD because I understand it. I understand how quickly it goes. It's quarter system, so it's fast. And I was like, I can help those students, in whatever way I can. So I went to work for another TRIO program, but at the college level, Student Support Services. And then I split my time to also build and grow at that time, Guardian Scholars Program, which is a program for foster youth, just foster youth at the time. We eventually grew that to be the Hope Scholars Program, so we changed the name, and then we also invited other students. So it then became foster youth, homeless youth, formerly incarcerated, and other disconnected youth.
Wow.
Because no one else was serving those other 3 populations on campus. We're like, well, we're going to do that.
Yeah. Stepping up.
Yeah. So the goal, one of the goals of me moving to that job was to, like I said, build and grow that program, which I was excited for. I wanted to take the opportunity to do that and work with the population that needs support in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So that was I really enjoyed that, that blend of the 2 worlds. That was a bit taxing because it was a lot. I'd have I'm just going to call them Hope Scholars, the Hope Scholars on one side, and then I'd also work with the TRIO students. And after it blew my mind that there was no full-time position because they weren't funding it for a full-time position, even though it required a full-time position to grow and build the program.
Yeah.
I officially was the only staff for that program.
That's a full plate, just that on top of everything else you had to do.
Yeah. Professional staff. I had student staff, which was great. They were super helpful. I really relied on them a lot. So eventually, I don't remember how many years it took. I think at least 2. We finally got the program, a full-time position for that program funded. So then I transitioned away from TRIO and just worked with Hope Scholars full-time and continued to build that out, which was great because then, it needed it.
Yeah.
And I still was able to hire student staff. I hired more student staff. I continued to grow the program. I think when I left, it started with 50, 60 students, maybe a little more. And I know we ended up in the high 80s, I think. So it continued to grow, which is great.
Yeah.
But I think what's really fascinating is there's so many more out there that didn't want to be a part of the program that were eligible for a variety of reasons. But we helped the ones that, that wanted the support.
So you're making an impact now. It feels good. I think you're probably getting some fulfillment at this point in what you do, right?
Absolutely.
But there's some other factors at play that have you wanting to make another change. So what kind of leads to that, and what brought you into this teaching job?
Yeah.
Just in a general sense.
Sure. I think I really like and appreciate growth, and I love to learn. Those are things that are really important to me. And I remember the day that I got the full-time coordinator job for Hope Scholars. I walked into my office, and I sat in my chair, and I'm like, what am I going to do next? And I think I always kind of have that feeling now. After changing careers once, it gets a lot easier to do. Mentally it does.
Right.
Everything else takes a lot of work. It's a lot of effort to have a completely different career shift, or even just move from one sector in education to another. It's a lot.
Yeah.
So when I sat there, I remember I sat in the chair, and I was like, all right, what am I doing next? And then I started just thinking about it, and I've always had these ideas ruminating of what I wanted to do eventually. Businesses, different ideas. And I wrote a 40-year plan on my whiteboard.
40-year plan.
Yeah.
That's unheard of.
I
respect the hell out of it, but wow, that's yeah.
So it was a lot of things. There was some consulting involved.
Yeah.
There was starting my own business, educational business. I had life coaching in there, which is something I still am passionate about also. Loosely termed life coaching. And a couple other things I don't really remember anymore because it's not what I'm doing. And then at the end, I had teaching, and I figured I would retire on that. I think that I always thought that I told myself that I didn't want to be a teacher right away because I didn't want to deal with parents. And I don't have that problem at all. When I'm like, so far I've had zero issues with parents. The parents have been fantastic. So I was going to do it at the end, and I wanted to go teach after I knew I wanted to leave UCSD. I was looking into teaching at the CC level, community college level, the CSU level, and then the high school level. And it was going to be tough at the CC or CSU because I only had my master's, and having the PhD is going to be so much better, and you have so much more, honestly, power at the university when you have that. And I would have had to create my own courses at the CC because there weren't too many like courses around my specific master's degree, education with college counseling and student development. Like I really got to come up with something specific. I found something at the CSU level that was like more student support type of stuff, and I could develop my own class. But I think there was a class developed kind of already, and then I could fill it in with what I wanted. And then high school math, which is something I'd always wanted to do. I just always told myself no because everyone, the stereotypes of a teacher, work really hard.
Yeah.
Don't get paid enough.
Yeah.
Correct.
Teachers always reminded us that as students. I remember.
Yeah, I guess. I don't really remember that, but like everybody else that I talked to would say that.
Yeah. And
my parents were like, no, like, why would you do that? Not like, my dad worked at the school, my mom was involved in the school too. But they're like, go do your engineering. Like, you're really good at math. And I'm like, okay. And everybody else was like, go do engineering.
You're getting pushed and pulled, man, all directions.
I was completely getting pushed in one direction. No one was pulling me back anywhere else. They're just like, go do this. It was so respectable and coveted, I suppose. They're like, oh, you're an engineer.
There's like clout that comes with that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I never felt like that. It's just like, I just worked hard at this one thing and I made that happen. That's it. Like, you can do that too. So I found this, one of the biggest reasons I decided to start teaching now is because I found the program that I'm currently in, which is through my school. So I work for High Tech High in San Diego. There's a few of them, there's 6 in the county. And through that program that I'm in, it's called the District Intern Program, I can teach at the same time and get my credential at the same time and get paid as a full-time teacher. Because there was no way I was going to take the time off and do 2 years of school, another 2 years of school.
Yeah. Not getting paid. Yeah. Not doable. Not in San Diego. Not doable.
I mean, I could make it happen because luckily I have family support there. So if I really needed to, I could go do that.
Yeah. But this is ideal, though.
This is ideal. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I really wanted to make this work, and I'm currently still doing that, and I'm finishing up my second year, which will be the last year of the program. So that's why I was like, well, I'm going to do this. This makes so much sense. And then once I get my credential, then I can see how I feel, and I'll be a couple years in. And then I learned that you have to do another year after you get your credential, which is to clear the credential, which sounds...
What's like the dues you're paying, I feel like.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is the credential is a 2-year program, which is fine.
Yeah.
And then I didn't know about this. I mean, after you get your 2 years, or you do your 2 years, you get your credential, and then you have to go clear it through a program called induction. I think it's called induction. Not like the cookware, but
So it's probably just so that you don't get your credential and then dip out on the school, right?
Not necessarily. This is not anything through the school. It's just everybody has to do this.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
okay.
It's just this process.
Got it.
So I was like, I got to do another year after this.
Yeah.
And what's really nice about this program is if I continue to work with this network of schools, they'll pay for the induction, so I don't have to pay anything for that. And it's only 1 year instead of 2. Typically, it's a 2-year thing. I was like, that's wild to me. The barriers to get into teaching are go through your credential, don't get paid, and you still have to go through another 2 years to clear your credential, your induction, which also costs more money. I was like, what?
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah.
But they are, when I say they, I don't know, the commission of teachers or whatever you call it. I don't know what it's called.
The secret teacher council.
Yeah. The Illuminati of teachers. Yeah, basically.
Teachinati.
Yeah. They are reducing the barriers that it takes, right? So there's certain tests you have to take called the C-sets to get into it. And they've right now they've removed the cost of those, which are typically $100 per test. And as a math teacher, I'd have to take 3, which I'm not excited about that.
So you said you work at High Tech High, and every time I hear that, High Tech High, it just sounds like a fake school in a Disney movie that's like ridiculously high tech, everything like virtual reality and like hovering, like,
Absolutely not.
chairs or desks or whatever. I don't know.
Nah.
So one thing that was interesting to me, I remember when you were getting this job, you had applied for a few different schools. Mm-hmm. Part of the hiring process for these teacher positions is you have to do a lesson. Like you basically do a lesson in front of a panel.
In front of the actual students.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the ones I would be teaching next year, I taught in front of them.
That was part of the interview?
Yeah.
Dang, tell me about that.
That was both. So I ended up interviewing for 2 schools, and they both required a demo lesson. And I was there. It's a full day thing. It's kind of wild too. You're there the whole day.
Not getting paid.
No. But I understand, like, if you're going to have someone come in and do the work that the teachers do, I would want them to spend the whole day. Yeah. With High Tech, it was, shown around the school. I had an interview with 2 specific students. It was 2-on-1. And then I did my demo lesson. Then I met with the teachers in my grade that I'd be working with. And then I met with leadership. So full day.
Damn.
They call it a bonanza.
Put you through the ringer, dude.
It did, yeah.
Because everyone has to like you, basically.
Yeah, but I also have to like them.
True.
The other school I interviewed for, same thing. Got there, met with leadership.
We're back after a technical glitch.
It's fine. We glitch. We resume.
And we keep going.
We persist.
We do persist. Resilience.
Resilience is key.
Yeah.
Persistence, key. Major key. Thanks, DJ Khaled.
Exactly. Shout out DJ Khaled.
Dude, DJ Khaled is honestly underrated for his knowledge on life and the world, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's kind of like Sage type guy.
Yes.
Okay.
I think he sounds kind of silly in the way that he talks about things, but you can see the wisdom. At least I can. You move past the persona and his presentation, and you actually listen to what he's saying. I've always been impressed with him.
He does seem like pretty down to earth for super famous rich guy, and seems like cool with everyone.
Yeah. There was something, obviously he talks about his major keys, and he's like, one of them was water. He's like, nobody told me to drink water. I'm like, shout out to
Everybody
water.
tells you to drink
Get
water.
Get H2O. I believe that he was never told to. That they didn't know it was a major key. Something so simple like that,
I love water, man. Mm-hmm. I will drink water over pretty much anything. Yeah. I mean, I love coffee, I love this and that, but
water's the go-to for sure.
Dude, it's just,
water's the go.
There's something about it's the goat.
The goat of liquids.
100%.
Yeah. We're mostly water.
It's the liquid of life.
Liquid, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go to why did you choose to teach high school of all things?
Yeah, so I think I really considered impact, or at least my impact, or how I can make impact on people, right? At the college level, I felt that students were a little bit older. They were
more set in
their ways. Yeah, sure. I was working with some freshmen, but a lot of transfer students as well, and for Hope Scholars. With Trio, same thing. It was a blend of freshmen and transfer students, not high school. Coming from high school. And it was developmentally, they're already kind of there, and they're becoming adults, and they know where they're headed, hopefully.
Yeah.
And some of them don't, and those I can work with. At the high school level, man, it's incredible to see how much they grow and change from year to year, from semester to semester, from month to month. Like, it's noticeable.
Very formidable.
Yeah.
Formative. There we go.
Definitely formative years.
Yeah. Well, I think because also, like, it's that middle part of your development where, like, you're not just really a kid anymore. Like, you're entering adulthood, so you're really forming, like, strong opinions on things and, like, who you are in the world.
Yeah.
But not quite yet. You're still, like, a kid in a lot of ways. So, yeah.
I think figuring out who you are in the world is one of the most challenging things for every human.
Yeah.
Figuring out who you are.
Amen.
And it's taken me a lot of work to do that, and I can finally feel comfortable to say that I'm pretty confident in who I am.
That's important for kids to see, honestly.
I think so too. Yeah. Which is why I talk about that all the time with them. And I tell them that it's okay if they don't know, and a lot of them don't know. And they tell me every day, like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm like, that's okay. I'm here to help you figure it out. And specifically 11th grade, which is like where I want to be. Those students are, getting into, I need to get serious about academics because college applications are coming up. All the classes are getting a lot harder. Welcome to 11th grade. I'm about to be a senior. I'm doing a lot more. And at this point, it's, for me, it feels like I would really want, if I was in 11th grade, I remember being in 11th grade, like, I want positive adults in my life that are going to help me push through this time and to help me figure out what I want to do. And I've had a variety of different jobs to where I feel like I'm in a position to help them figure that out.
You're bringing experience to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, that others may not have. So.
Yeah. So the Upward Bound job I had before, the idea of that was to help high school students get into college and then help them, give them the tools to do that. So I've done that already. I worked at the college level already, so I know what it takes to succeed at the UC level, for example. I mean, I was there too, and then I saw what it takes to be at UCSD. I did my counseling piece with those groups of students as well. So life coaching is something else I had been doing for a little while, a few years.
Yeah.
So I have my hand in that. I also, when I think when I was working at UCSD, I also had the opportunity to read applications for incoming freshmen. So I got to see what they're looking for, how they write their essays, and like what the UCs care about and how they give points to students.
Super helpful to know.
Yeah.
To pass on anyway.
Yeah. So I kind of have a good idea of, what it takes to get to this, at least at minimum, this level, right? I'm sure there's other levels.
You got some elite knowledge that you bring into this high school.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I definitely have a wealth of experience.
Yeah.
Which I pass on to the students as much as I can.
Yeah. And
I'm at the point, I've developed a lot of trust with them, and they trust me, and I ask them, you got to trust me. I know this isn't your favorite topic. I know we're doing math right now, but this is going to pay off in ways you don't even understand yet. It's really the trust the process. And that comes along so frequently with pretty much every job that I've had.
Yeah.
Education related.
Everything.
It's like, especially for young students. You don't know what it's going to look like. I'm like, you don't know what's going to happen in, a few years and how you're going to feel. I'm here to tell you it's going to change.
Yeah.
Most likely. And
always. It's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm trying to set you up to be successful.
Yeah.
And there's
build the fundamentals.
Really fundamentals.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here to do, and also help push them to understand themselves better as people, as students, as learners, and help them figure out the best way to do all those things for them. Because everyone's got their own path.
True. Yeah. Everyone needs a different approach. Everyone needs different advice. Cool stuff.
Yeah. I wouldn't even say advice. There's very few times where, and I've talked to you about this a lot, I don't like to give advice. I want you and everyone that I work with or help to really develop it on their own and find their own way.
Right.
Because I can tell you, or I tell my students, 100 different things to do, and maybe they'll do like one of them. And that's fine, right? Do whatever you feel like is going to be helpful for you. Take something and work with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get into we've talked about quite a bit already, but what it really be like to be a teacher, like the day to day. So your average school day, your alarm goes off, tell me what time, and then all the way through until you're done working for the day. What happens in between all that?
Sure. For me, I have to put more work in because it's my second year. I'm still trying to figure out how my flow feels pretty good. The flow of the class and transitioning from one topic to another and the flow throughout the day feels good. But like teaching content is so different than tutoring, for sure. So I spend more time than I want to right now. I think that I will need to eventually. So I usually wake up. I always wake up at 4, 6. Depends on the day. The earliest I'll wake up is 5, and the latest I'll wake up is like 6, somewhere in there. Get ready to go, get to work. I'm usually there before 7, sometimes like 6:45.
What time does school start for students?
8:30.
Okay.
Yeah. On Fridays, I have a meeting at 7:30 with all the teachers and our staff. It's like logistics. And then 2 other days a week, I meet with our teacher team. So with our inclusion specialists. So there's a bunch of really great things about the school. One of them is that there are no, what most people think of as like special ed classes. All the students on, we call it caseload, who have an IEP or a 504 plan, which means they need some kind of like additional support. And there's like a sped teacher who doesn't have their own class, but they push into or they're part of my class and the other classes that they are taking. So it's a fully inclusive and immersive school in that way. And so for the 11th grade, there's 2 teaching teams. And there's one of them's humanities and biology, and the other one's humanities and Spanish. And then so the group of like 50 students will take those 2 classes, and the other group of 50 will take the other 2 classes, and then all 50 will also work with me the whole year. Halfway through the year, those students swap, and I'm still working with them the whole year. But they get them for more time. So they get them for like 2.5 hours a day. I get them for 65 minutes a day.
Okay.
Our sped teacher has meetings, of course, every week with each team, and I'm a part of both those meetings. So those are 7:40. So those are 7:45 to like 8:15. I'm in those meetings also. Everything else, planning. I get to school and I'm planning for the lesson. I'm really effective at working during the day or in the morning, so I wake up early and get that ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm often finishing my lesson 5 to 10 minutes before the students are like coming into class, sometimes right at the time. And that's kind of how it goes. Like I will say that doing everything on slides and making it like tech, so I can project my slides and then talk about it, is very tedious and takes a lot of work and a lot of time. But it's so helpful for the following years because I can work off of that.
Oh, okay.
And it's so much more helpful for the students because they have a resource, right? Like you remember being in school or, any classes you've taken, is usually just like, here, we're doing it on the board. Here
Take
it is.
notes.
Take
Yeah.
notes. Yeah. Which is, I mean, if I could teach it like that, I would have so significantly less planning to do, but I can't. That just doesn't work. That's one, it's not helpful for students, especially students on caseload. Like a lot of them don't learn that way. They don't learn well that way. So that's, it makes me a better teacher to do this and to be more inclusive of everybody that I'm working with, but it just takes a lot more time. But it's time that I know will benefit me in the long run. This is only year 2, man. And, I'm still figuring it out. But anyway, so get to school before 7, plan it up until Fridays I have a meeting at 7:30. Tuesdays and Wednesdays I have a 7:45 meeting. School starts at 8:30. Classes for me are 65 minutes. We go 1, 2, 3 periods, and then we have lunch. And then our school's a little different on Mondays and Fridays. We have something called advisory, which is like kind of like homeroom in the sense, but like much more close-knit homeroom. Like we do activities and things to build community with the students of like our particular group of students. We have 19 in our advisories. It's me and one other teacher who share an advisory. And like on Monday, we're doing, it's close to Valentine's Day, so we're doing a Valentine's Day potluck. And we'll just have lunch together. We'll sit. We're going to make some Valentine's Day cards for each other.
It's cute.
And then, yeah, it's cute. We try to be cute.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, and have a good time. I love those kids. I love all the kids. And so that's Mondays and Fridays. And then after that, after lunch, my 4th period, if not advisory. And then 5th period, the last period of the day, is my prep. So, I work or usually plan, try to grade. Grading's the worst, dude. I hate grading.
So many teachers talked about that and how like they'd be grading like in bed, like late hours, like just it's always grading.
I've changed it to where everything's just online now. So I'm like, upload your stuff to Google Classroom. If it's there, I see it, boom, boom, just on the laptop, knock it out, get it done. It's easier now. Paper, man, the paper takes so long.
Yeah, and you gotta have like a bunch of red pens.
Nobody wants me to use red.
Yeah.
It's like their worst color. I was like, I'll use blue.
Would you, would you rather have your prep earlier in the day, or is like, I guess you've built a system now around it? Right?
I wanted it at the end. If I would want it either 1st period or 5th period. But the idea of teaching math at the last period of the day, nah, man, that sounds terrible. They already have a hard time during 4th period math.
Their brains are zapped already. It's like
yeah. But they don't. Math is the most like challenging subject for students. My students, I guess it always feels like that.
In general, I think that's true. Yeah,
people really struggle with math, and I try to not have them struggle so much.
What is it about? So, like, I just remember hearing recently, it's like math is actually really beautiful. It's like the language of the universe, and there's some really cool stuff with math, but it just has turned into like, I don't know, the way we're taught, it just makes it seem like this daunting, like dry, boring thing. But it doesn't have to be, right?
No. I think what I really love about math is problem solving. I love problem solving. That's what I'm good at. Math is problem solving, puzzles, logic, and a bunch of other things like that. So if you like those things, you like math. Not every type of math is always just one of them. Algebra is really just like a puzzle. You just rearrange things to figure out what something else is.
Balance the equation.
Basically, yeah. Do it to one side, got to do it to the other, right?
Yeah.
But it's weird, right? People understand numbers, right? But then when you get to letters, they're like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And you throw something else at them that's like cotangent, and people are like, freaking out. I'm like, relax, like it's okay, like don't worry about it, like we're gonna figure it out. It's just the inverse of tangent. We know what tangent is, right? And we'll get there. But I think they see something and it feels scary because it looks wild. And I remember feeling that way too. I'm like, that looks crazy. How am I ever supposed to get that? But I did. And I trust the process, and I trust my teacher or professor, whoever it was, and we figured it out. It only looks scary in the beginning, right? Everything that we don't understand frightens us as humans, right? So I get it. And I try, what's really nice about the school also is that it's a project-based learning school. So we do, it's focused on that principle and that idea of creating a project that involves the content that we're learning to help students create something to be more meaningful for them, to identify the connection to the real world. The last bigger project that I did was centered around logarithms, and I connected that to earthquakes. So,
because it's on a log scale.
Yeah,
that's right. Okay.
Yeah. So the project was to researched 2 different earthquakes in 2 different parts of the world. The calculation was more simple once you understand how to manipulate logarithms and logarithmic equations, which are like just all the log rules. Then you can solve this problem of like understanding how much or the intensity of an earthquake.
Yeah.
And how much more powerful one is than the other, right? But that calculation is simple once you understand all the rules, but it involves like 5 of the different rules all in one problem. So if you don't know them, you can't do it. But anyway, so it was research 2 quakes, do some calculations about the intensities, talk about what happened in those cities, and like what we can do as like humans to be good stewards of people who've been through major crises like an earthquake.
Some humanities in there too.
Yeah, we were doing 7.0 pluses, so they were devastating. And then the last part of it was like, okay, well, here's all this crazy devastation that happens. So what are we doing now as humans to make our buildings more earthquake safe? And so I had them research 8. Well, they got to choose one of 8 different seismic retrofits, which is what I did for the bridge in San Diego. So they researched different ways that engineers are making buildings more earthquake safe, and they created like a model of that.
Dude, this sounds fun, man. Like, where were these lessons when I was a kid?
Yeah,
these are cool.
That was my favorite project.
Like practical application of math.
Yeah, but
in the world.
Yeah, so they got the humanities piece in there. They got the mathematics of that, and then they also understand a little bit of the engineering part, right? My really goal with that was, I think my issue was I would hang out with people and we'd like have a shaky tile on a building, and they're like, "Oh my god, I feel so unsafe." I'm like, "That's wild. That's just one shaky tile. And that means nothing in terms of the entire structure."
Yeah.
So at least having them understand that these things work in this particular type of way. Yeah, it's funny that my director was like walking around and checking in with my students during that project, and he's like, "What are y'all working on?" And they're like, "It looks like humanities." And it's like, "No, this is for our math class." He's like, "Oh," and then he told me about that. I was like, "Yeah, it's like I'm trying to make this like kind of everything.
Yeah.
As much as it is math, like you still have to write, you still have to research, which is everything." So.
Well, yeah, like I mentioned, it's the practicality of math in the real world. Because that was like a big thing growing up learning math. It's like, when are we ever going to use this shit, right?
Yeah, I know. I still get that question every day.
But math is used all the time, especially in engineering, especially in things that require numbers at a big scale and everything. So
it is.
So you're making it interesting, and it's like, yeah, this is how it's actually used. So
that's the dream.
I like it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not just symbols on a paper that I have to like manipulate some weird way.
Yeah.
It's like. So.
And don't get me wrong, like I have to do the symbols on the paper sometimes, but that's fundamentals, man. Like you have to learn how to do these things before we can go and apply it to this like higher level math, so you can understand like what's going on.
Yeah.
And they get lost in some of that too, and I get it, right? And this is the trust the process. Yeah. But math isn't like, come on, dude. We're not like calculating a lot of things in our daily life, which is fine.
Right.
And I tell them that. And for me, mathematics has changed the way that I think. And it's changed the way that I problem solve. And when I talk to people who are, it comes into engineering too, engineers or people who enjoy math, and the way that we talk about a problem is different than people who don't like math, and you can tell very easily.
Yeah.
When I was working at UCSD, we had a whole staff meeting, and I remember there was some issue, and I was like, "Well, why don't we do this?" And then people looked at me and they're like, "Huh?" And then I looked at one of my coworkers from across the room who studied chemical engineering, and he was like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "Yeah."
He gets it.
And I was like, "Can you tell?" He's like, "Yeah, he'd been working there for years before me," and then he told everybody, and they're like, "Oh," and I was like, "Okay." He's been translating for everybody else, non-engineer, non-math people for a while, so I was like, "You get it, dude." But like we understood, like it's the way that I process and think about problem solving, which is why I love it so much. That it really makes an impact on how I operate.
Let's get back to
day to day.
The day to day. So you did your fifth period prep. The way teachers kind of painted the picture for us was you're working beyond those hours too. At home.
For sure.
Yeah.
So welcome to end of the day on some days. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, Friday, that's the end of the day for me. And then if I really wanted to, I could go home. But I also have office hours. Students who are struggling or falling behind will come in and get support. And I'll work with them for 30 minutes to an hour, sometimes, very rarely, but an hour and a half after school, which is a lot. It's basically just feels like tutoring, but I'm not getting paid anything extra. And then on Wednesdays, we have a staff meeting after school, but that we're done at like 3:45, so that's pretty quick. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, after fifth period, we have something called X block, which is like exploratory block. And we can do whatever we want. We can teach whatever we want to teach or do whatever we want to do that's like there for the students. There's things like basketball, ultimate frisbee, pickleball. Nice. I did anime club where we would watch anime and talk about anime while we were watching it. That was it. Very chill. Last year I did a financial fitness for the future class where I talked about finances,
investing, budgeting, all that stuff.
Since then, I have actually embedded that in my class. So at the end of my first semester,
thank God, dude.
The last week, I know. My last week before the Christmas break, I did Monday through Thursday. Or I'm sorry, Tuesday through Friday. Yeah, like the one day I did some math and then I connected it to financial literacy and then I just talked about financial literacy. We talked about all those things you mentioned and more. And they really liked that. Like, oh, thanks for talking. I was like, yeah, well, we'll see if you remember.
Yeah, but I mean, at least they got the basics of it.
It's there,
They
right?
got introduced to it.
Yes, yeah. That's one of the craziest things I learned too. People always ask for that, and the stupidest things I see like on the internet are, like, oh, it's it's tax season. Good thing no one ever taught me how to do taxes in school. Like, if it was geometry season, then I'd be all set, right? I'm like, that's so dumb. But there's been multiple studies shown that if you introduce financial literacy to students at middle school, high school, or the college level, there is no significant proof that says one or the other is better. It's very random. Some people are going to pick it up and some are not, and then it doesn't really matter when you teach it. So I still embed it within my curriculum because I have the freedom to do that at this school, which is great.
Nice.
Yeah. But currently right now, our 11th grade students are going to take an internship. They're going to do an internship for the last month of school. So instead of going to school, they go do full-time work at some company that they want to work at. Last year we had students, the ones that I oversaw. One guy was working at a law office. He was working with immigration law. I had another student who was in an interior design firm, and she was helping to design the inside of this building and the furniture around it.
Wow.
I had one guy who was working with this tech company who focuses on communications, and he coded this whole system for them.
Damn.
Yeah, so it's really cool stuff.
They're doing cool stuff. Yeah.
It's really great experience, and it's super valuable, and they just can't see it until they get there. And so our current exploratory block is internship. Get a resume. Let's reach out to people. Let's get you an internship so you'll be ready to go, because they got to do all that work. I'm not doing it for them. I'm just helping guide them. So that's what I'm doing right now. And that's it. So that's those are the options, but it's a lot of things throughout the week and a lot of variety that takes just different brain space to do.
Yeah.
And then once I'm done with work officially, then it becomes either, like I said, either office hours or, high school. It's they have sports. Yeah, events, and they're like, Javi, you got to come to my game. Please come watch me. And I'm like,
how do you say no to that?
Dude, it's so hard to say no to them because I love them.
Yeah.
And they'll, I'll pop in for a bit, I'll, catch the first half of a basketball game, and then I was like, I gotta go. I'll take my laptop in there sometimes and work from the bleachers. And if not, then I'm usually working in my classroom, usually till minimum 5 o'clock. I always try to leave before 6, and then I get home. I'll relax for a little bit.
Yeah.
Think about nothing. Hopefully, clear my head.
Yeah.
Make some dinner. Watch a show for a little bit. Hit the shower. Then it's like, we're 9 o'clock, and then I'll usually plan a little bit more, or like at least formulate what I need to plan for the next day. And then sometimes I'll knock out the lesson or most of it. And sometimes, man, they just take a lot of like specificity and just like a lot of little pieces to make it happen. So it takes a lot of effort to make that lesson.
So you're working typically 7 to 5 plus a little bit in the evening to plan.
Yeah. Always. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll call it, it's usually 5:36 every day.
Okay.
And if not, like I said, this is my second year. Last year I created some slides. Some of them are very high quality. I can use parts of them again, or I can use them again, which is really nice, which is the intent. I was like, set myself up for success.
Yeah.
Because last year it was a lot more than that. I was probably working at least another 2 hours every day, just because it was my first year, and I was
just building all that up.
Yeah, but I also didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah, true. Do these kids get the slides that you make? They get like access to it?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Man.
It's on Google Classroom form. And
we just had like those overhead projectors.
Yeah.
With like transparent papers, and it's like, just copy it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we get printouts, I guess. But,
we get some printouts. Yeah.
But dude, just having like access to it, like on my phone anywhere, like that's just.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These kids these days, they got it good.
They do, but they also have a really hard time. The internet's a wild place, and social media is a crazy thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I was gonna call it a demon, but like.
Yeah, let's not go down that rabbit hole, because that's endless.
Yeah. That's kind of the day, and then I try to be in bed before 10. Usually, like if it's 9, I'm like, all right, let's get a good 7.5 hours sleep, and then be ready to go again.
And that's the school year, and luckily you have the holidays off for the most part, and then you have a good chunk of time in the summer.
Yeah,
a couple of months there that's like off. I mean, you're still doing lesson planning and stuff here and there, but you do get some reprieve from those long full days.
Yeah. And I like. Yeah, you still have to work during the breaks. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
There's no way getting around it. There's always something that like needs to be done. There's always some grading that's got to come up. Every break, Thanksgiving break, I'm trying to catch up with my grading. Christmas break, you're finishing my grades. You're writing comments for the students. I have to write comments for every student that I have, and it's like a little paragraph of like how they were doing, strengths, areas of improvement, and like what I notice and what I see. And like they read those and they care about those, and I try to make them as meaningful as
the
I
student gets
can.
to see that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I write them for them.
Yeah. It's like their little review.
Yeah. And they value that, and they'll talk to me about it. And if I didn't write something that they like, they'll talk to me about it.
That's not how I see it, Javy.
They're like, why did you say this? And I was like, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So there, and then it's always like it's a project-based learning school, dude. Planning a project is wild.
Yeah.
It's incredibly challenging, but it's incredibly rewarding once it gets done.
Takes some creativity, yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I really value about this job too. I have so much creative freedom, and it's allowing me to be more creative and challenging me to be more creative too. And I love, like we were doing like I said, I'm getting my credential at the same time, so I'm taking a class once a week with other people who are doing that. And I have 2 other colleagues at my school who are in the same program, and we were working. One of our assignments was to create this like rubric, and we helped one of the guys at my school like build on his project, and it was like lovely. Like the collaboration is incredible, but like I caught myself coming up with these ideas that I never thought about before, and I'm like, damn, like it's really fun to be able to expand my mind enough to be able to be more creative than I had before.
Yeah.
Because with engineering, there's like, we can come up with some creative problem solving, but at the end of the day, it's just like, well, here it is.
It's already there for you. You just got to put the blocks into place, so to speak. Yeah.
So there's no limitations with this, which is great, but can also be daunting. For me, I just, try to look at it as a challenge, as a way to grow and learn.
Yeah.
And something I want to get better at.
Yeah.
So.
Because it's fulfilling when you do it well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the product is beautiful when it's done well.
And the product ultimately as a teacher is, I mean, young adults into the world, you know. You're really, I mean, we touched on this earlier, but it's like you're a role model for these kids. You're an adult figure for these kids. And a lot of kids remember teachers they had, you know. And it's like, dude, I love this teacher. And they don't really know why. Maybe they can't parse it, but it's because that teacher formed them in a way, gave them some values, gave them some insight, some way, something that they took away, you know.
Yeah, that's one of, I don't remember who it was. Well, maybe it's Maya Angelou. The quote was, like, you won't remember what people said or what they did, but you'll remember like
the way
how
they made you feel. Yeah.
And I truly believe that. I think about my teachers too, and there are certain moments that stick out. And I remember like one of my math teachers, like I liked him. And what I really remember was this game that we had played in class that was completely unmath related. It was like get in a circle, and then, you know, everyone puts their head down, and then like, I don't remember what the word is, but it'll say a word, and then everybody looks up, and you have to look at somebody. And if you're looking at somebody in the eyes, if you're both making eye contact, then you're both out. So you're, and then you make the circle smaller. And it was fun, but like that really stuck out to me. I'm like, that was so unmath related. But that's what really, like, what I really appreciated. And I think about that as I'm developing as a teacher, and I have some of those in place already. Like I create these spaces or moments that are not math at all, where I still think they're meaningful.
Keeping them engaged.
Yes, but it breaks up, and it like creates this routine, and it breaks up the content, and it's things that we look forward to.
Yeah.
On Mondays we do celebrations. So every Friday there's I give out a survey of like the week and how they're feeling, which drives how I continue to produce my content or what I focus on more. And it's like, you know, 1 to 10, tell me how you feel about this, and average it out, and then spend more or less time on certain things. I also ask them to celebrate anyone in the classroom they want, or any other class, for whatever reason you want. And it's very fun. Cool. It's super fun. And then I'll take all that and compile it onto a slide. So I'm like, period 1, period 2, period 3, 4 celebrations, and they'll read them out. And so it'll be like, Brandon had 3 celebrations, and for one of them, for his super cool hoodie. Right? Like, it'll be random things. They'll put the funniest things on there. One of the kids is really tall, and he'll get one. They're like, for being like the shade that I need in my life, right? 'Cause he's taller. For being San Diego's tallest palm tree for 16 years running, like silly stuff.
That's
like
funny.
That. Yeah, so it's really fun.
Kids are funny, right?
They're very funny, dude. Yeah. It's a great time. They make me laugh all the time.
Yeah, I bet.
Mm-hmm. So we'll read celebrations on Monday.
Okay.
And they love it, and they're hype about it. Most of them are. Some periods are a little more like sleepy about it. And I'm like, yo, you want to see what the other students are writing? And then they'll kind of step up next week and write more. Yeah.
Okay.
I like
light
to
the fire under them a little bit.
Yeah, I like to make the periods compete against each other.
Yeah.
Which they love. So that's Mondays. And that's like a great way to start the week. And then Wednesday, I do a Wednesday Wellness Word of the Week. So I choose a word, or I also ask them that. I'm like, what's a word that you want to know about or learn about? And then they'll give me suggestions, and I pull from their words like 95% of the time. And then we'll talk about a word. This past week, the word was motivation. So I'll create a slide. I'll talk about it for always less than 4 minutes. It's usually 2 to 4 minutes, somewhere in between there, about, in this case, it was motivation. Last week, it was passion. And I'll talk about what it means to me, how I do it, why it's important to me in my life, and I don't know, whatever else, something else related to the word.
Damn. So they appreciate that, I'm sure.
They do. They like that one. They're like, it's Wednesday. And they're like, that's when I catch their attention the most. The one on motivation really got their attention. They're like, that was my favorite one.
Damn.
Like, cool. So that's a really nice way for me to break up the week. At least those 2 things. Yeah. There's other things that I'll do randomly or still trying to figure out like what I want to do. those two, I enjoy those, and I'm going to keep doing those.
Those are cool. Yeah.
Thanks.
You mentioned this earlier, but this job is kind of unique in the sense that your clientele are not just the students in your classroom, it's their parents.
Yeah. And
I mean, this is a dynamic, deep, and important relationship between the kids, the parents, and the students. To me, it seemed like that would stress me out. You just kind of mentioned like the parents have been awesome. So tell me about like what it's like working with parents and like, I guess the contrast between them and the students and what you can see.
Everyone's different. At the end of the day, though, the parents love their kid and they want the best for them.
Yeah.
And so we have these things called student-led conferences, which is SLCs. Instead of parent-teacher conferences, the students present their learning and tell us what they've been learning, and we get asked them questions. It's almost like panel-style interview. They're up at their board. They're talking about what they've been doing during the year. They show some of their work that they've done, what they're proud of, where they want to improve. And then so it's us, teachers, and the parents there in that meeting. So that's like when we have the most interaction with them. And that's coming up this coming week. We'll be doing those. Other than that, it's I'll meet them at they have parent association like mixers. They'll have like
you get faded with the parents, the mixers.
Yeah,
okay. That's cool
for sure.
I don't think that was a thing growing up.
I mean, you never knew, right? Like I don't think
that was a secret.
I guess, yeah. I don't know if it was a secret. I mean, these students know. Like they'll have one of them. There's like a fundraiser. And it's at this yacht club, and we all go and we'll hang out with the parents. There's like raffle items, and they always give you a bunch of drink tickets. They're like, "Thank you so much," and they're like, "Here you go." I'm
the
like,
parents?
Let's go. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're super cool. Well, it's because they're like really appreciative. Once you a lot of them I don't meet until that day or like the conferences, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're the math teacher. Thank you so much. Like you've been helping my students so much."
Yeah.
I'm like, great. Ideally, and like this is still something that I'm working on. Like I want to have more communication with not my parent. Well, yeah, my parents too, but also their parents, and and just tell them like, shoot them an email and be like, "Yo, your student is like crushing it this week. Like here's what I've noticed. Like, you're doing a great job too." And they really value that too, and they appreciate that feedback because sometimes.
Usually it's just it's like negative feedback, right? It's like, hey, your kid sucks. They're not doing this.
Right. That's when the parents hear from the teachers the most, which is like part of what we're trying to change in this culture of like when you hear from us, is because there's good things going on too. Like we're not just here because of the negativity, right?
Reward these kids. Let them know.
Yeah. I tell the students all the time as much as I can. And I'm like, oh, that's right. Like let them know. That's something that I know that I always have to work.
They got to hear from the parents too.
Yes, but they really value it from the teachers.
Right.
One time in the morning, one of the students was like, I don't know, she asked me something about like how I see her or how I view her. Oh, and she was like, Javi, I thought you hated me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I love you. You're awesome.
Yeah.
And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, this is what I think about you. And I told her these things. I'm like, you're such a hard worker. Like I can see that you come in and you care about other people in your space. Like you have a really good fashion sense about you. I remember I told her about the presentation that she did last year that I remember stuck out to me, and how she was so well put together and how she connected to her family and all these things. And she's like, whoa. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, thanks. I'm like, yeah. And then the other student's like, whoa, do me next. Like, tell me about me next. And I'm like, okay, and I did one more, and then some other people came up, and I was like, "Oh, I can't do this all day here."
They're eating it up, dude.
Yeah, they love it, right? Yeah. And I notice everything about these students, and that's what's easier second year too. Is I can focus less on the content, focus less on the I guess the lesson, and focus more about them and how they're engaging with the content or what's going on with them personally, which is what is really important to me. Building those relationships with them and having them trust me is super crucial to being able to teach them. If they don't buy in, then they don't really care.
This is just really demonstrating to me how important this role is in our society. Because, I think about AI and taking over and stuff, and it's an AI could just present information to a kid and have them learn topics, but the role you're playing is much bigger than that.
Sure. I feel...
And you like that part of the job.
100%. Yeah. I'm like, look, man, I've messed up a lot in my life in different ways, and I figured out how to do things in a more positive and productive way for me, and like I'm super happy right now with where I'm at in my life. And I'm just trying to pass that stuff along and make it easier for them. Like if I can make life easier for people and teach them the things that have taken me years to learn on my own, because no one ever told me, right? Like no one ever told me to drink water. Yeah. Thanks, DJ Khaled.
Thanks.
Then that I feel so much better, and I feel fulfilled because I'm making it easier for people before me. And that's why I'm working with this. That's why I'm working with high school, because this is where I can make that impact, and I can feel that, and I can see it. Obviously not everyone, and some people are going to pick up things, and sometimes it doesn't really matter. But as long as, like, for me, I always tell them, I'm like, I'm here to be a positive adult role model in your life. I will model all the things that I do and how I live my life, and hopefully you pick up some of those and you take that for yourself. And they're really responsive. I got really nice feedback from them all the time on most surveys too. It's like they tell me really beautiful things, and they're really you can tell, like I told you, like I love them, and I tell them that I love them, and they tell me that they love me too. It's a really lovely relationship.
I like that.
And they'll come up to me and just like tell me, on Friday I also have like I said, I have the freedom to take my class whatever I need to do. So if I feel like I need to shift it in some direction, I will. So on Friday we went to the park, and we had a park day. That's awesome. We played games. Took a football, frisbee, volleyball, whatever. There's like a swing set. People just got after it. On the way, one of the students was just telling me really nice things about myself and how he values me as his teacher, and how like he appreciates the things that I'm doing for him. He can see that I'm working really hard, and he feels like he's learning a lot. And I was like, dude, like you're incredible. Like, and this kid.
Did you cry?
Not that time. It was, we're just walking. I was like, thanks, man. I did cry the week before. I'll tell you why in a moment. But I told him, I was like, this kid impresses me. He asks the best questions out of any student I've ever worked with.
Wow. Yeah. That's high praise.
I told him, I was like, dude, I was like, and I've worked with a lot of students, and like I'm always impressed with what he thinks about and what he asks and the clarification that he wants. I told him, he's like, dude, thank you so much for saying that. And I'm like, yeah, man, it's you. But like the other, last weekend, or last Friday, I was out and I had a quiz, and I had someone cover for me, which is really easy. They just step in, give them a quiz, all period, they just do the quiz. And one of the teachers asked them to like celebrate me, and they left sticky notes on my whiteboard. And I read those when I came back on Monday, and those made me cry for sure. I was tearing up, yeah. Wow. They were saying so many nice things, and a common theme was, I know it's math class and we don't really like math, but you make it exciting for us, and I really appreciate that. And they're telling me a lot of really nice things.
You're doing a great job.
I'm trying.
You are, it sounds like you're making a big impact on these kids' lives.
Possibly. We'll see.
How has this job changed you as a person?
Ooh, good question.
I'm full of them.
Yeah, I know you are.
Like your student.
Yeah. It has made me more happy overall. Like I said, the work is tough, but the work is like, and at the end of the day, like I get to hang around with high school students and teach them about a topic and a subject that I really enjoy. Like, that's really what it is.
It's fun.
It's fun, yeah. On the days that they're being assholes about it, it's not that fun, and I have to get like serious. I'm like, really, guys? Like, I have to stop, and I'm like, this is not going the way that I want this to go. Like,
high school kids can be huge assholes for sure. Yeah. I was one. I'm sure you were one.
Yeah, like, I'm still an asshole. And I have to be an asshole sometimes. And there's three things that I ask for in my classroom: that you're present, that you're respectful. What's the other one? I'm gonna blank on the other one for now. I'm sure it'll come up to me. And
you do damn homework.
I don't give them homework, dude. I give them time in class. I was like, if you don't finish in class, it's homework.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. And if you're not doing those things, then it's like we're having a bad time.
Yeah.
So I was like, if that's going on, then I stopped the class and I'm like, you're not accomplishing these things I asked for, so we need to fix it.
Firm when you need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And they respond.
Yeah. Say, hey, we're having a good time, and I know you guys like this, but like, come on, this is also serious. Like, this is my job. You need to learn, kind of thing.
Yeah. It's fine. Like, we get a little bit loud. But I was like, yo, it's getting a little too loud. Like, I can't hear the person I'm trying to work with. Like, I love that you're having a conversation and you're engaging with the other students in class and you're having a good time. And that's fine. Learning should be fun, in my opinion. And learning, I think that's like the best way I learn, right? But like, quiet down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this job has made you more happy. Mm-hmm. What else has it made you realize about yourself or changed you? That
my coworkers are like, I need to like my coworkers.
Yeah, of course.
And I need to learn from my coworkers. The other job that I got offered, one of the big reasons I didn't go there was because I didn't like the teachers I'd be working with over there. I didn't connect with them. But here, man, I was impressed with the caliber and just who they were as people, and they're just overall nature and how just wonderful humans that they are. And I still truly believe that. I'm here to work with those groups of people because I appreciate them, I can learn from them, and they're just very caring individuals. The culture of the school is something I really enjoy, and that starts with our director, and he's awesome too. That's a big reason why I'm here also.
Are you looking for a raise? Is that why you said that?
No, I'm not going to get a raise. No, I say that because I truly believe it.
Yeah.
And I've learned that about myself that, this is what I enjoy for now. It's always for now because I don't know if I'll do this for the rest of my life, just like with everything. Like I said, as soon as I got this job too, I'm like, all right, what am I going to do next? What can I figure out? When I started applying for these jobs, I was like, what if I open up my own school? I was like, could I do that? And I started talking to people about that, and I met some people who were doing that, and I was like, man, I'm okay. And I think I've just figured out like more of what I value. Well, no, I've always known what I value. I think it's just more of like solidifying those values. And like, it's always like, okay, is this what I actually enjoy doing, and why do I enjoy doing it? So there's more of that too. I'm just more sure of myself. I think every time I try to progress, and we were talking about this, I think last week, when I try to like move forward in my life, I want to do something for longer than I did it before. Last job I was at was for 4.5 years, and that's the longest I'd been at one job. I guess except for tutoring, but that's a little different.
Yeah. Has it made you, because you're kind of in a role model position now, has it made you think like, oh, I really do need to like be the example that I'm trying to teach these kids? Has it made you a better person in that way? Not that you were a bad guy before, but
thanks. Probably. I think that's just a product of that. For me, there's part of like life coaching, counseling, or like working with people and doing like the Wednesday once for the week is like, it's stuff that I already do and I already know. It's stuff that I already know. Let's put it that way. And when I talk about it, I hear it too, and I'm listening to myself, and it makes me
reinforces that,
yeah. And like it like also makes me be a better person. For me, like it makes me do what I feel like I need to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that's in a selfish way, that's kind of why I do it too, because I'm such an external processor. Like if it's all up here, I'm having a hard time like actually, making it real. But when I say something out loud, I understand it better.
Nice. Okay.
So that's why like all the things I mentioned are so helpful for me, because as I'm telling these students about motivation, I'm reinforcing and reminding myself what motivation is for me, and then I can continue to do that. As I'm talking about passion, I remember why I'm so passionate about this job and how I got there. But I intentionally create those structures because I know that I need that too. And it's nice that I have the space to do that. So it's always helping me, man. Like everything that I do is because I care about it, but also because it's there for me.
Yeah. So we were walking around the strip yesterday, and you mentioned how your feet hurt. And I was thinking about it. It's like, man, yeah, you do a lot of standing.
Yeah, the standing.
As a teacher, it's a lot of standing.
Yeah.
So that's a very minor, like, downside of the job, something you don't enjoy.
No, it is something I enjoy. I prefer to be standing than sitting down all day.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is, we've talked a lot about what you love about this job. What are some things that, because every job has its pros and cons.
Oh, yeah.
What do you not like about this?
The grading, number one. The amount of time it takes to plan a lesson, number two. The amount of time it takes me to do the tech part of it, actually, like I said, create the slides. I don't have this much of a problem. I think in a dream scenario,
okay.
Everyone that I'm working with is there because they want to work with me. And that's like dream scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a hard thing to fulfill.
That's utopia.
Yeah. But I would say that there's, out of the 110 students that I have, there's probably like 4 that I know that just like really don't want to be there. And it's not because, maybe it is because of me, but it's also because of the content, and they just don't like math.
Yeah. What are their names? You can shame them.
Nah.
No, I'm kidding.
I would never.
No.
They know who they are.
Yeah. They're listening right now, like, dude, there's no way he's talking about me.
It is you. And that's fine, but I understand. If they'll tell me that it's like I like you, but I just don't like math. I'm like, I know.
Do it for me then.
And a lot of them do, which is part of the thing that I've created. So anything else I don't like? I don't know, man. There's not really much I don't like about it.
You seem to love it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do love it. Yeah. That's all I got for now. Yeah.
So then what kind of person, like if someone was thinking like, oh, all this sounds great, maybe I want to be a teacher too, maybe they've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
What kind of person should get into teaching?
I don't like the word should. That's not, I don't know. Should is like
the ideal human that wants to teach. What characteristics do they have?
Well, I'll tell you this. It really depends on the school. This is a very different school than anything that I've experienced before. And if you go to a public school or just like regular old high school, I'm sure it'll be different.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'd have the connections that I do. I'm at a charter school. It's a public charter school. I don't think I'd be able to make, well, maybe, I don't know. It would just be different.
Yeah.
Bare minimum, like the people that I've seen that are ready to leave, and okay, here we go. So, sorry, this is a tough question. I know I'm a little bit scattered on this one.
It's all right, you're working through it.
It's weird, yeah. I'm definitely working through this one out loud. One of the things I've seen about people that are successful is the ability to grind. Like, you have to be able to grind. And
the grading, the planning.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a core part of it.
Yeah. There's something I watch a lot of videos on people who talk about like greatness, not intentionally, but it's like usually like a part of that, right? LeBron has a show like The Shop Uninterrupted, right?
Yeah.
Love that one. I watch that one all the time. It's always people who have done a lot of great things, and including himself. He talks about like being addicted to the process. And I've found myself figuring out that that's what I enjoy. I love the process of getting better at something. I'm not like, I don't consider myself a master of anything. I'm just like pretty good at a lot of things, or I've at least made myself pretty good at a lot of things. And I like that. I like learning. I like learning a lot. And then like, the idea of like having to then slowly learn just feels weird to me. I haven't gotten to that point to mastery, right? Mastery is a very slow thing. I think that for me is part of it, right? It's like being addicted to the process of getting better and that grind that you have to do. If you don't like that, I think you're going to have a hard time. You have to want to build a relationship with students. Like that's like number one. Buy-in is for me the key.
You got to be social, or like social activity anyway.
Yeah, but also like at least in the way that I do it, my style of teaching. I have a teacher who's or who works at the school. She's older. She's fantastic. She's incredible. So talented. And I walk into her class, and I'm like, they're just over there working. They're like, yeah. It's like I just let them do their thing, and I'm just over here, get everything else ready. And I'm like, you're crushing it. And she's not very social in that way. She's a little more introverted, but it's absolutely incredible.
She makes it work, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I need to talk to her more about how she does it, because I'm always impressed. I need to go observe her.
So you're picking up different styles to see how you can incorporate.
Yeah.
stuff.
See if because I don't know what it. I've had my teachers in the day, but it's so different nowadays in the way that people interact, and I want to be the best teacher that I can be, the best version of myself. So I'm always trying to learn and ask. And I guess that's another part of it. Like, you have to be willing to learn. Like, you're not as great as you think you are.
Yeah.
I say that to myself. And be humble in that way.
Yeah.
It sucks when I get bad feedback, and I'm like, damn, that was crappy. But, I want to get better.
That's how you get better, yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a level of, you have to have some, tough skin. Students are,
good one.
gonna say some things, and nothing's really about you. Nothing's ever about me. It's always about them and how they're feeling. That's kind of just
100%.
everybody everywhere,
Yeah.
right? It's just a projection of what's going on with them.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So realizing that is very important. And not letting those things get to me is really important too. I'm like, they're just kids. At the end of the day, they're telling me something. I'm like, I'm twice your age, right?
Yeah, literally.
And all the life that you've lived, I've done that another time.
Yeah.
And I've been very conscious of that, right? So that's always funny.
I remember being that age, and it's like you just think you know everything when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
And then you graduate high school and you get in the real world and it slaps you in the face a little bit. Sure. Everyone goes through that,
Yeah.
But then you start realizing, wow, these people with life experience, they really, all those things they tried to tell me were because they knew what they were talking about.
Yeah. I also I don't know. I'm sure people were trying to tell me things. I just nothing was really hidden. And I don't remember a lot of things that people were trying to tell me.
Yeah.
But I also don't think that people, when we were growing up, were as intentional about that type of stuff.
Doesn't seem like it, huh?
No, it doesn't feel like it at all.
No.
And now it's it's such a different, I think a lot of it has to do with the stigma around mental health and just taking care of yourself and wellness overall. That's more important to people nowadays.
That's big
for
now.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to spread that good stuff.
Yeah.
Because I know how helpful it is for me and how much better I feel that I do those things.
Amen.
Yeah. So I think that having a good ability to take care of yourself too is super important in this job, because man, it's just you and those kids, and you got to command that room. There's also a presence that you have to have up there, and you have to be a little showy. It almost feels like a performance every day.
Ooh.
I got to get up there and I got to
You got to turn up a little bit.
You got to turn up a little bit. You really got to engage them. At least that's what's important to me. But there's a difference between being up there and being fake, and being up there and being your authentic self, and putting on, but just showing all of you.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do. I'm up there and I'm as animated as I want to be. And if I'm not feeling good, I'll let them know that I'm not feeling good. And if I have the energy, they can feel it and they know and they're ready. I think this past week, I was having a really tough day on Monday. I was feeling really sad, and I told them I'm sorry, I'm not feeling that great right now. I'm gonna try to be my best for you, but just know that this is where I'm at. And you can tell the energy in that room was different that day.
You're real with them. I think they appreciate that.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I was feeling much better. I was feeling great. I walked in, one of my students, she did my advisory. I love her. She's great. And she was like, Javi, you have really good energy today. I was like, thank you. I was like, I feel much better today.
Nice.
She's like, great.
Good kid.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Dude, when you're saying that you have to have your own, your own life organized and be put together in your own life, you reminded me of a teacher that we had in middle school. I'm not going to say the name.
Okay.
But this teacher was just hanging by a thread, dude. And you're going to know who I'm talking about, I think. But you could as a student, you could tell. You could tell this guy was like a stack of unorganized papers, like wrinkled coming out of the sides, you know. He's like dropping his pen, you know. He's just like flying into each class like barely on time, barely making it, dude. And it seemed like he was just winging every lesson, you know. And as a student, like, you didn't want to take that guy seriously. Because, like, he didn't take him, like, we didn't really understand at this level, but it's like, he didn't take himself seriously. Why would we take anything he said seriously? Students can tell these things, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a level of expectation that comes along. You're going to be, like, you better be ready. Like, why isn't everything beautiful? Why isn't everything, like, ready to go? And they're like, what's going on? Well, this is a trash lesson. And I felt that a lot more last year than I do this year because I'm just super learning, and it's hard. And there's like, they don't understand like all the thought process that goes into how to make a lesson flow, how to teach certain content, how to introduce it. Like, it's a lot. And every day you got to get up there and do it. It's taxing, man.
Demanding.
It's very demanding.
Yeah.
But like last year I felt it a lot more being my first year. Now I'm like, I just do it, right? It's just, but I also am super comfortable public speaking and getting in front of a big crowd. And so this is like no issue for me. And I'm really good at like walking around the room and getting people's attention if I need to. So that's important as well. There's like, I'm naturally a shy person, but I've developed that confidence to just be myself and feel comfortable doing that. And I talk about that too. And I told them really very real with them about what's going on and how I'm feeling. And they appreciate that too, because they understand, well, it's like, if that's who you are and now you're doing this, and they see me with this, you know, level of confidence, then it's like, I can do that too. I can get to wherever I want to go.
I like that. What advice or tips would you give to someone that maybe listens to this podcast and they were like, you know what, maybe I do want to be a teacher. I'm going to do it.
Get after it. Yeah, go do it. Go find out, like, go find a school that's going to make sense to you. Like, go figure out your values as a person and what you care about in a workspace and what you care about in a career and what you want to get out of it. And if that's the case, then go.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel passionate about that, make it happen. It's there for you, and there's people, like, we need high quality people to teach the youth, man, teach the kids.
Yeah.
And to be around them and to help and support them. Like, it's so, dude, cliches are so silly, but they're so important. Like, children of the future. Like, well, yeah, no kidding, right? They're actually going to grow up, and then they're going to be there. Yeah. They're going to be in the future. So I guess that's kind of it, right? Like, you know,
find where you fit, I think, is...
Find where you fit's key, man.
Because there's so many different ways to teach, different levels, different subjects.
Yeah.
Different types of schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I think about, like, myself interviewing or for jobs, and, like, when I tell my students when they're looking for the internship, I'm like, they're interviewing you, but you're also interviewing them. Yeah. You got to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for you. And if you walk in with that mentality and that mindset, it's a different space. You know, when people are like, I don't have any questions during the interview, I'm like...
That's terrible.
That's a mistake. Yeah. Number one, like, you got to ask about the things that you care about. Like, tell me about, you know, the work-life balance here. Tell me about the way the culture feels. Tell me about the values of your school. Tell me about the things and how you interact with your coworkers. Do you like, whatever is important to you are things that I'm asking about and I'm looking for. And when we're having those interviews, I'm like very mindful of. Advice for people wanting to be a teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, all the things I talked about was like, be ready for all of that.
Yeah.
Like, it's more than you think it's going to be.
Right.
And I don't say that to deter people. I say that to, like, stay ready. And have fun. Like, it's always got to be you. Like, if you're you in front of them, they're going to appreciate it so much more. Like, authenticity is key here. And they can see right through the fakeness. And they'll tell you, and I've heard from students who talk about other teachers who they've seen who are like, yeah, but they felt very fake. And I was like, dang, I was like, is that how you talk about me? They're like, no, like, we know that that's you. I'm like, okay, cool. It's like, it feels like me. Like, I'm not up there, like, lying to myself or trying anything, you know, that's not me. So.
Let's go to story time.
Okay.
Do you have any... I mean, kids are funny. Do you have any hilarious stories you could share?
You know what I really like is I like to like find little notes that they write to each other.
Oh,
that one makes me laugh a lot.
You ever read them out loud in front of the class?
Yes.
Yes, dude, that's amazing.
But I don't find very many because we're not in the note era anymore.
That's
it's
true.
always like
It's all
texting each other.
texting.
Yeah. There's one that I've only found 2 over the past 2 years. One was about like, it was very sweet, the most recent one. It was like something on a piece of paper that big, and it was just like, I love you. And the other one was like, I love you too.
Wow.
And it's like, I just want to hug you all the time, and like all these other like really sweet things. And it was really nice. And I showed some coworkers that. The one I found last year made me laugh. I found it and I read it in front of the class. It was something about black garlic. It was like, hey, have you had black garlic? And they're like, no, what's that? Like, you've never had black garlic? They're like, no, I just had regular garlic. It's like, okay. And they're like, what is it? And it's like, oh, it's fermented garlic, or I think that's what it was, right?
I've had it in ramen.
Yeah. And
it's the only time I've seen it, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember what else it talked about, but it was like goofy things like that, and I read in front of the class, and they enjoyed it. Other funny moments, I don't know, dude. I've said some unexpectedly inappropriate things in class.
Just came out a certain way, and the kids are like,
man. I was like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that.
Because they'll catch all of those.
Yeah, they do, and it's like,
and they'll look for them. It feels like they're looking for him too.
Yeah, I remember it was something I was like, if you blow it here, you're gonna blow it everywhere else. And I was like, some of the girls were just like, damn it. It was fine. One time I accidentally mocked a student.
Ooh.
Yeah, she was like complaining about something, and I just like, I mocked. I was like, doing something on the board. And she was like, well, why do we have to do this? And I was like, well, why do we have to do this? In like a voice. And then I was like, oh my God. And I turned around and I was like, and then everyone was laughing. And I looked at her and she was laughing too. And I was like, okay, cool.
You got away with it.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I'm sorry. And she was like, no, don't worry. I thought it was funny. I was like, all right, cool.
That's fine. That's very mild.
Yeah. Students do, I don't know, they do some goofy stuff. And I know they do stuff behind, when I have my back turned and it's like hard to catch it. But
you hear snickering.
Yeah. There's, I'm just like, I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff. They always tell me some funny things. Nothing really sticks out because it's just like all the time.
All the time, yeah.
The ones that stick out are when I mess up and they're like laugh at it.
I remember school, like high school and middle school, just being hilarious, dude. Like every day, there's just so many shenanigans, so many funny things throughout the day.
Yeah.
So it's full of that. It's hard for you to isolate stuff because it's like, dude,
it's all
constant.
the time.
Yeah. That's why you have so much fun, dude. It's like the energy there is just fun.
Yes. Yeah. And they're always like coming up with ideas about things. And one of my, there's always like some sayings. There's always new like terminology and like words and stuff.
Oh, you're learning like the fresh lingo now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Riz is like,
what's Riz?
Having like the ability to talk to like the opposite sex.
Oh,
it's like, man, well, that's like one of the
it's like
celebrations. Yeah, like, oh, one of the kids, like celebrating him because he's got hella Riz. I'm like, okay.
Are the kids saying hella?
Sometimes.
Isn't that funny that hella was like strictly Northern California?
Yeah,
for
really
most
Bay
of our
Area.
lives.
Yeah,
and I remember Southern California people, like, I remember I would say it.
And they'd be like, what?
Like, oh, you're from NorCal, huh? Like, immediately they knew, and they would, like, mock it. And now everybody says hello.
Yeah, it's not uncommon at all.
Yeah. We started it, all right? That's our word. You can't have it.
You can use as much as you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's a great time all the time. And that's part of it, too. It's like, they're going to be silly. They're going to be goofy. They're going to say out-of-pocket things. And just be ready for that, which is fun. Like, I embrace it. I'll laugh with them too. Something funny will happen. I'll just start busting out.
Yeah, of course.
And I love it. Yeah, it's a good time.
Anytime that you're like trying to cover up that laugh, it's like, I can't be laughing at this, but it's too funny.
Dude, oh man, yeah. What? I don't know, man. That's happened a bunch.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sorry. That was I was like, you can't be saying things like that. But I was like, but it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
High school humor, dude.
Have you ever sent a kid to the principal's office?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was cursing at me.
Oh.
Yeah, that was, that happened once. And this kid came in late. And I always tell him, like, you're going to come in late. Don't just start going around talking to people like you're late. Get to work.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt my class just because you're late. And, like, he goes to the back and talks to another student. And I didn't know at the time, but they were, like, trying to sell the phone to the other kid because the other kid's phone just, like, I don't know, stopped working or whatever. And he needed it, like, right there. In his mind, he needed it right there. And I'm like, yo, just, like, grab a seat. And he's like, all right. And then he, like, didn't. He was still back there. And I'm like, I walk over. I'm like, yo, like, come grab a seat. Like, you're late. I know. He's, like, got really upset. Started throwing F-bombs around. And I'm like, God, what even happened? I just remember he was, like, saying a lot of, like, inappropriate things or, like, rude things. And I'm like, yo, like, if you're going to keep talking, like, at least look at me in my face and talk to me. Because you're being really disrespectful, just mumbling under your breath.
He was like looking away, mumbling.
He was looking at his laptop, and I'm like, I walked right up to him. I was like, go ahead. He's like, I can't. If I look at you right now, like, I'm gonna say a lot of, like, inappropriate things. I'm like, okay. Well, you can just go down to our dean,
Principal Oshag Hennessy.
Yeah. Okay. So we call it director and dean, right? So instead of principal, vice principal, whatever. You can go down to the dean's office and go talk to them. And then the student goes like, I'm going to go wherever the fuck I want. And I'm like...
That's what he thinks.
I was like, okay. And then he walked out. Where do you think he went?
He went to the dean.
Yeah. Her office was closed. She wasn't there. And then like I followed him. I was like, I walked out. And he's like, don't you have a class to teach? I was like, I'm trying to make sure you're good. And then he walked over to, since the dean wasn't there, he walked over to the director's office. He was in there. He just sat on like the couch or the chair right outside. And then I walked over to the director. I told him what happened. And he was like, all right, I'll talk to him. And then, yeah, it was a tough time. Weird situation that was nothing to do with me. He talked to a couple of other teachers that day, and he was frustrated. And they gave him they're like, well, don't you think it was just a misunderstanding? Like, don't you and Javy have a good relationship? He's like, yeah. And then I was like, so I wrote him a letter that night and like told him like how I felt, what I heard from the teachers, what they told me. And I was like, I understand why you wanted to do this, and gave him my perspective as well. And told him like, I was like, that we're cool. Gave him the letter the next morning. He showed up to class. He read it. Everything was good.
Ever since it's been great?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're really getting through to these kids.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's your job.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're doing a great job.
Thanks, dude.
Any parting words that you want to say?
I don't know. I don't think so. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's been great. Honestly, like, we've talked about your job a little bit in the past, but not at a depth like this. And it's a really important job. I think it's underappreciated. And I think the profession really needs people like you that are in it for the right reasons and they want to do a good job. And they're making an impact on kids' lives. So as a human being, thank you for what you do. And thanks for sharing on this podcast, man. It's been awesome.
Thanks, dude. Thanks for having me.